When it comes to delay plugins, there's no shortage of available options. But when it comes to creative delay plugins, well, your options get a bit more narrow. A plugin developer by the name of the BDSP recently reached out to me and said, hey, I've got a brand new plugin called Pollinator, and I think your audience would really enjoy it. Needless to say, I was really impressed, and I'm happy to showcase it here on the channel today. Pollinator is a creative delay that has the ability to use 4 separate delay lines that can feed into one another, creating some really insane effects in the stereo field. But that's not all. Pollinator can be used to create ping pong as well as stereo delays, stereo widening, subtle reverbs, metallic sound warpers, and so much more. So that being said, before we start, I want to thank the BDSP for sponsoring this video, and they've been so kind and so generous to offer all of my viewers a $30 off coupon code. The link is down below in the description. By using this discount code and picking up Pollinator, not only are you supporting independent plugin development, but you're also helping to support the BDSP so he can continue making great plugins for us to use in the future. So that being said, make sure you smash that like button before we start, get subscribed, and let's get into Pollinator. Enjoy. So today we're going to be taking a look at Pollinator from the BDSP. Pollinator is a creative delay that has the ability to use 4 separate delay lines that feed into one another, creating some really insane effects. Pollinator was made by a plugin developer called the BDSP, and he's an independent developer, and I encourage you guys to go check out the link in the description of this video for a discount code. I'm really excited to feature his plugin here on the channel today. And I want to thank him for sponsoring this video. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get started. The Pollinator, as you can see, has 4 separate delay lines, and there's a lot of options that we're going to talk about here. There's some really cool ways you can use the delays here. And what I've got is a sequence that's all set up. This sequence is coming from VCV Rack 2. And as you can see, it's a sequence coming from Psych that's feeding into a couple voices here. I've got a Platts, some filtering going on. Another voice down here on the bottom that's going into another instance of Platts that's being quantized with some LFO movement and filter modulation here coming from Surge XT. All right, so this first example here is completely without effects. So basically the Pollinator will be off and we're just gonna hear a raw sequence with some pads and bass in the background. Check it out. So that's just our basic sequence, right? Coming from VCV Rack, as you can see. But now we're gonna turn on the Pollinator here, and it's in its initialized state. So most people, when they think about a delay, they just wanna kind of set it and forget it, right? And you can do that with Pollinator. So we're gonna start out really simple here. I'm gonna go ahead and just focus on unit 1 here. I'm gonna turn up the gain all the way to max. As you can see, the in is coming from here and it's going to delay unit 1 right here. Now, when I turn up the main output, you can see that the delay is now going from the in to 1 to out. Now, this signal flow is very important because when you start mixing all these different delay lines, it's gonna start representing those connections right here on the left-hand side, all right? So first things first, 1 feeds into 1 is right here. So this is basically the delay feeding back into itself, how a normal delay works. So if I go ahead and hit play here, you can hear that delay is feeding into itself. Now I have this at 100% dry, 100% wet. You can obviously adjust these to taste, right? The dry signal being the basic signal coming from VCV Rack. Now, over here on the delay page, which is where you're gonna spend a lot of your time, the delay page shows all 4 separate delay lines. He's done a really good job on the interface here. So I can go ahead and just adjust this to maybe like 1/8 notes, right? And that would give us a nice straight 1/8 note delay, okay? If that's what you're looking for, cool. You can turn up the feedback here if you want. But most of us who watch this channel are really looking for something like a dotted 1/8 note. Now, a dotted 1/8 note in fractions is 3/16 notes, right? So what you have here is the 3/16 notes, And when I turn that on, you're gonna get this, which is what we call a dotted eighth note. Now I know it's something you're thinking like, oh, hey, science. It wouldn't be a Signs of Life production without some dotted eighth ping pong delay, right? That's what this button right up here is for. So to activate ping pong, you're gonna activate ping pong, and as you're gonna see, all the pan controls are gonna flip over to width controls now. Now, the way to make it ping pong is to take one of the signals, at least one of these, and move it over to either side, either the right or the left. So as if I move this to the left, you're gonna hear and visually see that this is gonna turn into a ping pong delay. Check it out. See how it's going back and forth? Now we have because the width is all the way up here on 1, we now have a dotted eighth ping pong delay. Pretty cool, huh? Now let's go over to the delay controls over here. Now, you also noticed that we have drive controls and filter controls. Now this is really cool because you can do this separately for each independent unit, right? So if I wanted to, I can make a much darker delay by making a low pass filter here. As you can see, we have low pass, all the way center is band pass, and we have high pass. If I wanted a darker delay, this is gonna filter out some of the frequencies in my delay. So check it out, I'm gonna hit play. And as I pull this down, you're gonna hear the delay gets much darker, right? Even though we have our dry signal all the way up, I can turn down the dry signal, and we get a much darker delay now. Right, so if you're looking for that effect, this is sometimes called tone control in other delays, right? So that's cool, right? You can also go the other way and do a high pass. And this is where you can get really creative with it and start using the resonance control. As you can hear, that's affecting the filtering of the delay feedback, right? So that's cool. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. What if, for example, you wanted to add another delay to this, right? So what you can do here is you can turn up the gain on unit 2. And as you can see, now unit 2 is now, and the in is now feeding to unit 2. I can also turn up the main output. So now it's also feeding to the second output. So as you can see, we have 2 going into 1, 2 going into 2, which is exactly the same as this one, 2 going into 3, and 2 going into 4. So if I turn up 2 going into 2, and I come back over here to the delay page, you can see that we're running at 16th notes. That's fine. We have a dotted eighth ping pong delay over here. We can make this just a straight 16th note, but check this out. When I hit play, you're gonna hear we have a much more colorful delay because we now have 2 delays running at once. And this delay, we can get all kinds of creative with it. Now here's where it gets really interesting. So now that I have a second delay, what if I started adding that delay to the feedback line of number 1? So 2 going into 1 means unit 2 is gonna be feeding into number 1's feedback loop, if you will. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this up. Check this out. And you can hear that this frequency is now feeding into the delay line of number 1. You can see where I'm going with this. So we have a really interesting interplay now. As you can see, 2 is now headed over to 1's direction and it's getting caught up in number 1's feedback loop. Very interesting stuff here. We can make this ping pong, pan this all the way to the right. Now we have a 16th note ping pong delay that's feeding into number 1. We can add some drive to it, give it some grit. There's an automatic gain compensation button here. You can turn that off if you want to get even more aggressive. Pretty cool, right? So this is highly interesting stuff because you can get really creative with this, especially if you start turning down the dry signal, right? And now we're talking about like having a sound source, an independent sound source that's really, you can like sample that if you want. I mean, this is a really interesting and inspiring creative delay. So let's go ahead and add one more unit here. I'm gonna go ahead and turn up the gain on unit number 3. turn up the main output. And on unit number 3, what I'm gonna do is crank this to the maximum of the fractional delay here. That's 1/32nd note, so it's gonna sound really fast, right? We're gonna turn up the feedback here. Oh, love that. Right? Turn down the dry signal. Right? That's where you start entering like timeless 3 territory. You're getting some really interesting delays here. Oh yeah, that's cool. I love it. Now you also might have noticed that we have 4 macro controls over here. The macro controls are super useful and super powerful. So what you can do with the macro control is you can assign this to any knob inside of Cross Pollinator. So what I would want to do here is maybe I might think about taking this and mapping this macro. All you got to do to map the macro is just drag this thing down here, and you can see it shows up as a like sort of round knob. You can go ahead and adjust the amount that that macro is going to turn. So now when I turn the macro, you can see now I'm adjusting the frequency of unit number 3's filter. Cool, right? But not only that, what if I wanted to modulate this? I could do that, right? I can come over here and say, all right, let's go grab an audio effect in Ableton. If you have your own LFOs, that's cool too. I'm gonna grab an LFO, and what we'll do is we'll come over to the Cross Pollinator and we'll say configure, right? And we're gonna configure this. We're gonna configure macro 1 here. We'll do macro 2 as well, and that's good. To click off configure, and now with our LFO, we can map this to macro 1, right? So now as you can see, we are modulating macro 1, which means we're gonna modulate the frequency. I'm gonna put this about 2 bars right here, and we'll lower down the depth a little bit. There we go, just like that. So let's go ahead and hit play. And as you can see, now macro 1 is moving, as well as our filter frequency. And like I said, you can map this to as many knobs as you want, as many times, and get some really interesting live performance effects. You can get all kinds of stuff. Now let's go ahead and get really crazy here. Let's add another unit here. Let's use triplet. There we go. That's cool. So now we have a really creative delay on unit number 4, and we can feed 4 into itself. We can also feed 4 back into, say, 3. Turn up the main output. Oh yeah. And look at all of our delay lines going off here. You can hear the result. That's incredible, right? So this is more than just your standard delay. Cross Pollinator is something really unique. And, you know, I mean, there's other products that kind of do similar things. More Feedback Machine 2 comes to mind from Yuhi, but like, this is from an independent developer, and this is really interesting stuff. Like the fact that you get distortion controls, and you can really get creative with your delay usage here. It comes with like 128 presets, which are really nice. I love this. This is great. So let's go ahead and look at some other uses of Cross Pollinator. Right here on this pad, you might have noticed that I have an instance of Cross Pollinator here, but listen to the difference. I'm gonna go ahead and put this back onto dotted eighth notes. Let's go back to one of my presets here. We'll type in, here's a preset browser, by the way. It's over here. You can type in search terms. We got metallic. You can turn this thing into a reverb if you use really short delays. It's kind of interesting. So we'll just do the Sines dotted eighth ping pong delay here. And we'll go ahead and hit play. Now on the pad, I have an instance of Cross Pollinator here. But listen to this. I'm gonna solo the pad. So the pad here is coming from Vital. It's coming from Anomaly 3, right? And without Cross Pollinator, you see we're kind of like, you know, it doesn't sound, it sounds great, but at the same time, watch what Cross Pollinator does to really improve the stereo field. Do you hear that? Like it takes it up a whole nother notch. This is straight from the presets. It's called Zephyr. And as you can see, the stereo field got way wide as soon as I did that. Added cross-pollinator. Add back our original delay. Oh yeah. That's what I'm talking about. So it's things like that you can use cross-pollinator for. It's almost like that secret ingredient, you know what I'm saying, in the recipe. Cross-pollinator is really interesting. As you can see, we got really cool feedback lines going here. Love it. 3's going back into 4. Oh my gosh. 1's going into 2. Really cool. Let's take this up another notch, all right? I added a glitch percussion track right here. And it's got an instance of cross-pollinator on it, but let's listen to it before we put cross-pollinator on here. It's your standard, you know, sines, glitch percussion, right? I've got some samples here that I've taken from various sources or made myself. It's going into an automaton, feeding into an LFO, going into microfills, going into the Bleece motion sequencer, putting some auto pan on there. And finally, we have cross-pollinator with a preset called Cosmic Gumbo, with the dry signal all the way up and a little bit of wet. So this is gonna add a little bit of extra spice onto this. Listen to this. You hear that? That little bit of extra sizzle? That is so cool, right? And this again is straight from the preset pack. I mean, this is like, it all comes with cross-pollinator and it's all right there for you. Super inspiring, super interesting, and I highly encourage you guys to go check this out. Cross-pollinator is available right now. Again, you can check out the link in the description of this video for a discount code. It's only good for a couple weeks after I release this video, so I encourage you guys to jump on this and go support the BDSP. I mean, this is a great plugin and he's committed to making more improvements. He's gonna add some modulation in the future, and I'm super excited about the future of cross-pollinator and this plugin developer. Thank you guys so much again for watching. I truly appreciate all your support. And yeah, I love featuring plugins on this channel, which are from independent developers, because we're all working together to make our music better, to make, you know, technology evolve and this whole music space. I'm really excited for the future. I'll be back again soon with more ambient tutorials just like this one. In the meantime, take good care, you guys. And as always, keep your heads in the clouds and your feet planted firmly on the ground. My name is Chris from Signs of Life, and I'll see you guys in the next one.